Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha. Dear friends, in the last class of Siddhantabindu, we had seen how Madhusudana Saraswati explained that all the appearances are deceptive and a matter of superimposition only. Now, he further explained the Abhasavada and Pratibhimbavada also. That means these two appear to be two different theories of the relation between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul. So, some Advaitins hold the view that the individual soul is only a reflection of the Supreme Soul, and in that case the individual soul will be real as the image. And some other Advaita thinkers hold the view that the individual soul is only an appearance or a semblance of the Supreme Soul, and therefore in this theory the individual soul will have no reality at all. So this way, these are the major theories. Madhusudana Saraswati has very carefully presented them in the Siddhantabindu, and in this particular discussion he also explained how Pramatrita is there in the individual soul. That means who is real knower, who is real perceiver. This is very important issue. That means people think that I perceive, I know. So thus perception, knowing, all these are attributed to the self. But in the Vedanta philosophy, and of course the Advaita philosophy, which follows very sincerely the Vedanta philosophy, the individual soul cannot be karta. So when there cannot be any kartrutva or agenthood, the pramatrita is also impossible, because pramatrita, if we analyze the word prama tru, the tru is trujanta, so that is truch pratyay, and prama is the base. So when these are put together, prama tru, that means prama karta. So here prama karta is not possible in the case of the individual soul, because there is no kartrutva, akarta. So this is what the Upanishadic philosophy says. And kartrutva, bhoktrutva, etc. are all only superimposed on the individual soul, says Adi Shankaracharya also. So considering all these views of Vedanta and Advaita especially, Madhusudana Saraswati explains that Pramatruta is not a natural dharma of individual soul, but it is only an attributed one, and it is only a superimposed one. What is this superimposition? We understand that because of previous impression of something, when we attribute the properties of something to some other, it is called superimposition. Just as in the case of our set example, the traditional example of snake and rope also, just because of the resemblance or similarity between the rope and snake, tortuous shape, all that, the snake, which is only in the memory, is superimposed on the rope, and the rope is perceived as snake. So this is superimposition. And here kartrutva, in whatever form it may be, pramatrutva and jnatrutva, dhyatrutva, etc. So all these pramatrutva, jnatrutva, dhyatrutva, these are all only superimposed ones. These are only attributed ones. Therefore, they are only unreal. As we had seen earlier, that the heating, the feature or the quality of any iron, etc. is only attributed one, because iron, when it is heated, it temporarily becomes hot, okay, but being hot or heat is not property of that iron. Similarly, pramatruta, jnatruta, etc. are only temporary properties, temporary attributes of the soul. The soul is pure, satyam, jnanam, anantam. So following this particular tradition of Vedanta, Shankara Bhagavad-pada also explained that the soul is only Shivaha, pure absolute consciousness. And Madhusudana Saraswati explains that Pramatruta, which the entire world observes in case of this individual soul, is just because of its contact with the intellect. That means the intellect and consciousness have the same substratum, have the same locus, and therefore the properties are inter-reflected. That means the properties of consciousness are reflected in the intellect, and intellect reflected in the consciousness also, and therefore intellect appears to be active and consciousness appears to be pramatru. But Madhusudana Saraswati explains here that pramatruta is an attributed one, and it is because of adhyasa. Adhyasa is atasmin tad buddhihi anyatra anya dharma rupaha. So smruti rupaha paratra purva drushtava bhasaha. So consider any definition of adhyasa. Absolutely mistaking one for another is adhyasa, and this is because of attributing the qualities of another one in some another thing. So thus adhyasa is the base for all pramatruta, dhyatruta, etc. And now the present text continues. Now the objector argues, you say that adhyasa or superimposition is the cause of all such kind of impressions, pramatruta, jnatruta, etc. Now we say, nanu adhyasopi nopapadyate. But how can you establish this adhyasa? Because adhyasa too is itself not established one. So first establish the adhyasa, and then on the basis of this adhyasa only explain all these features. Thus now the point of discussion is adhyasa or superimposition. And now he elaborates, tadhahi. Now there are two options regarding superimposition. What is superimposed on what? Atmaniva anatma adhyasyate, anatmaniva atma. So this is the point of discussion. Now explain to us. You say that it is because of adhyasa. Well, but adhyasa anatmani atma or atmani anatma. That means what is superimposed here? Whether the consciousness is superimposed on the non-self, that means objective world, or the objective inert world is superimposed on consciousness. So either should be explained here. Atmaniva anatma adhyasyate. What is superimposed? Is the inert world superimposed on consciousness, or anatmaniva atma, or the individual soul or consciousness is superimposed on the inert? Now, considering these two options, when we analyze the concept of adhyasa, the first option is not plausible. Why? Na adhyaha tasya nissamanya visheshatvena sarvada bhasamanattvena sadrishyadi rahitatvena cha adhishtanatva asambhavat. Now he says, you cannot superimpose the inert, lifeless, inanimate thing on the consciousness. There are three reasons supplied by Madhusudana Saraswati. One, tasya nissamanya visheshatvena. Nissamanya visheshatvena. Tasya means the soul. The soul being of this nature. Nissamanya vishesha. Arthat nirgatau samanya visheshau yasmat. Tadrushaha atma. Nissamanya visheshatvena. That means just because the self is devoid of the general and specific properties, attributes, qualities, nissamanya vishesha. That means it doesn't have any common property, nor it have any specific property. So two are there. Generally we observe that the world consists of samanya and vishesha. Thus dravyam, that means substance itself, is explained as the substratum of samanya vishesha. That's what the Mahavakya also says. That's what the Vaiseshika Darshana says, that basically dravya means that which is a conglomeration, a locus of samanya and vishesha. Now coming to this particular atma, nissamanya visheshatvena, the soul is not a locus of either generic or specific properties. What is the generic property? The generic property is satta. Satta is the generic property, and Vishesha, it can be in any form. That means jnana, etc. But these are not the properties of Atma. That's what Advaita philosophy says. That means the pure form of consciousness, the soul, is always devoid of all such properties. That's why it is ekam, eva, advitiyam, nirdharmakam, nirgunam. So these are all the properties of this particular thing. And nissamanya visheshatvena, this is first reason. Sarvada bhasamanatvena. And the second reason is that the soul is sarvada bhasamanatvena. That means it shines forth always. That means there is no point of time where the soul is not present. We observe in the three divisions of time, in the past, present and future also, the soul exists. That means the consciousness, the energy in the form of consciousness exists in all the three divisions of time, and we don't find any particular time where the soul is not there. If we say that there is a point of time when soul is not there, we should assume that the soul, the observer must be the soul. And when the observer is there to say that there is point of time, then it is the soul. That's why we can never deny the presence of this particular consciousness in any point of time. And third reason given by Madhusudana Saraswati is sadrushyadi rahitatvena cha. And another one, when you superimpose something on the other, there is some base for that superimposition. What is that? It is similarity, sadrushya. So just because of that particular similarity only, a thing is superimposed on the other thing. If there is no similarity at all, how can there be superimposition? That means we cannot superimpose, or we cannot mistake piece of rope as a watch or a door or something. The piece of rope is mistaken for a snake. Why? Because there is similarity. What is that similarity? It is being tortuous in form and light being insufficient. So all these are the reasons why rope is mistaken for a snake. Similarly, when conch shell is mistaken for silver, we understand that particular shining, the shining property of conch shell is mistaken for that of the silver. So thus, everywhere when superimposition takes place, there is one similarity, point of similarity. And now when you say that the consciousness is the base and anatma, that means the inert objective world is superimposed on that, sadrushyadi dharma rahitatvena, Madhusudana Saraswati tries to bring our attention to this fact that there is no point of similarity between the self and non-self. That's why this superimposition is not correct. This is, we should understand that all this argument is of the opponent only, and after paragraph 2, Madhusudana Saraswati will give the answer also. So first we understand the view of opponent who argues that adhyasa is baseless. Now he is analyzing the concept of adhyasa. Now what does he say? He says this adhyasa, you say, is the base of all superimposition, okay, and is the base of all the conventions like pramatu, etc. Okay, but what is this adhyasa? And what is the thing superimposed, and on what it is superimposed? All these problems arise, and there we find that the first option is superimposition of selfless object on the self, and for three reasons this is not possible. One, the Atma in the Vedanta philosophy is devoid of all properties, therefore it cannot be the adhisthana or base. Two, it is the Atma is shining forth always, it is self-referent, it is self-effulgent, it is always present, therefore it cannot be the base for Anatma. And third, there is no similarity between Atma and Anatma, and on account of these three reasons, the superimposition of Anatma on the Atma is absolutely out of question. Adhishtanatva asambhavat, and thus he says this Atma becoming the base for superimposition is impossible. Napi dvitiyaha, and now we come to the second option. Napi dvitiyaha. What about the second option? No, it is not possible. Tasya mithyatva abhyupagamat. Tasya, that means of the anatma, mithyatva abhyupagamat. That means it is regarded in your philosophy, that is Advaita philosophy, as mithya, unreal. So two things, the Atman is always real and it cannot be the base of adhyasa. Now coming to the non-self, it is mithya according to the Advaita philosophy. Therefore, it cannot be the base for this superimposition, mithyatva abhyupagamat. Mithyat vastunaha adhishtanatve shunyavada prasangat. And if you say that this non-self also can become adhisthana or the base, then shunyavada prasangat, it will lead to shunyavada, that is nihilism. How? We find here that if this non-self is accepted as the base, then mithya vastu can also become the base. That is the problem. That is the logical problem here. And if we accept the possibility of even a mithya vastu, non-real vastu also becoming the base of superimposition, then we should assume that any illusory thing also can become the base. For example, the barren woman's son, or hare's horn, or sky flower. So any of these two can become the base. That is the problem. And in that case, we will be indirectly supporting the Shunyavada, because the Shunyavada also says that there is nothing, no reality at all. And if we presume that there is no base for this particular superimposition, then it will finally land in Shunyavada. Tasya cha satyatve tat anivrittehe anirmoksha prasangacha. And if you say that this particular base is true, tasya cha satyatve tat anivrittehe, so if that base becomes true or real, then it cannot be removed. Anivrittihi, that means it cannot be removed. And anivrittehe anirmoksha prasangascha, and if this particular non-self cannot be removed, if we hold the theory, then anirmoksha prasangaha, that means there cannot be any liberation at all. So these are the logical fallacies here. That means if we understand the non-self as the base of all superimposition, first thing, the non-self is regarded as unreal in the Advaita philosophy, so it cannot be the adhisthana. Even if we consider that non-real object as base of superimposition, there is another problem, that it will become real, and a real thing cannot be negated. And in that case, the world experience, world perception can never be denied or negated, and then nobody can get any liberation at all. So these are the fallacies pointed out here. Tasya cha satyatve tat anivrittehe anirmoksha prasangat. That means we understand the chain link connection here, that for this particular liberation we have to understand this world appearance as temporary or unreal, and the Brahman reality, lone reality we should assume. Otherwise there cannot be liberation at all. So first thing, for liberation we have to understand the world as unreal, and because it is unreal, some other thing is taken in its place. So this should be the chain, explains the text. Nahi satyam kvachin nivartate nivartamanam va jnanena. The thing is, a real thing, satyam, na kvachit nivartate. That means a real thing cannot be negated. A real thing cannot be denied or discarded. Nivartamanam va jnanena. And even by knowledge, nobody sees that the real thing cannot be discarded. That means if I know that this particular object is book or clock, etc., so my knowledge cannot discard its reality because it is real. Similarly, if the world appearance is taken as real, then our knowledge or realization of the Brahman cannot deny the appearance of this world. That is the problem. Now, this is logic. Now coming to the scriptures, what do they say? Shrutayascha. That means the scriptures also explain very clearly. Bhidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarvasamshayah kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drushte paravare. So it's very beautiful mantra from Mundaka Upanishad. It says very clearly, Tasmin drushte paravare. Paravara. That means parascha avarascha. That means that which is very high and that is very sukshma, subtle also. And that kind of reality or consciousness is paravara, that is the Supreme Soul. Tasmin paravare drushte. That means when that particular reality as Supreme Soul is realized, on the wake of this kind of realization, bhidyate hridaya granthihi. That means the knots of heart are bhidyate, are broken. What is that? What is the knot mentioned here? The knots are three. These are raga, dvesha, moha, or ahankara. So just because these are the knots which confine this particular soul in the body, they are called granthi. Granthi in Sanskrit means knot. And here, bhidyate hridaya granthihi. That means whatever makes our consciousness confined is the granthi, and bhidyate hridaya granthihi. That means that particular knot is removed. When? Only when that supreme reality is recognized or realized and experienced. So that one is there. Bhidyate hridaya granthihi. Chidyante sarva samshayaha. This is the second one. Sarva samshayaha. That means whatever ambiguities we have, whatever doubts we have, whatever little knowledge we have, all this gets kshiyante, attenuated, annihilated. How? Only when that particular reality is realized. That means once this supreme cosmic reality is realized and felt within, then all our heart or psychological knots are broken. 2. All our doubts, all our suspicions are removed. And muchyante sarva karmani, kshiyante cha asya karmani tasmin drushte paravar. Kshiyante cha asya karmani. Asya karmani. That means this is with reference to the knower. That means a person who realizes that supreme consciousness. Tasya karmani kshiyante. That means whatever he has done till that particular moment, they disappear, they vapor out. How? Because he has realized the reality. Thus, whatever he has done out of ignorance, all that will vanish on the realization of this particular reality. So this says very clearly, bhidyate hridaya granthihi, chidyante sarva samshayaha, muchyante sarva karmani, tasmin drushte paravare. Not only this, tameva viditva atimrutyumeti. Tameva viditva atimrutyumeti. That means tam viditva eva. The word, the indeclinable eva should be placed after viditva, so that we get two senses here. Tameva viditva, stressing on knowing that particular reality alone. That means knowing the consciousness alone, he is relieved of death, or he goes beyond death. And if we place this indeclinable after viditva, after knowing only that particular consciousness, he transcends death. That means two meanings are possible here. One, stressing on knowing that particular reality, and two, stressing on knowing itself. Thus two things are there. Realizing that supreme consciousness is important, and two, realization alone is important. Thus the indeclinable eva gives this sense, and the emphasis is shifted, we can observe here. So tameva viditva atimrutyumeti nanyaf pantha vidyate yanaya. The Shruti says tameva viditva, tam, that is paramatmanam, paravaram, viditva, jnatva. That means after realizing that supreme self alone, mrityum ati eti, he transcends death. This is first one. Second, tam viditva eva mrityum ati eti That means after realizing only that particular consciousness, he transcends death. So these two also show that in order to get this particular liberation, one has to have the realization. That means realization alone is the very competent means to realize liberation. Tameva viditva atimrutyumeti. And how does a person transcend this death? Physically it is not possible, because we observe that all the supreme great souls also had death physically. That means Shankara Bhagavatpada and other great teachers also left this mortal body. So leaving this mortal body is common to all the souls, even to the liberated souls. But when it comes to the feeling of death, these all people transcended the feeling of death. That means they went beyond that. They landed in a particular reality where they find their own awareness and consciousness always present. And that kind of reality is meant here. That's why in the physical sense, though they get the death, in the spiritual level they always see themselves. And that's why atimrutyumeti. And another thing is also there. Nanyah pantha vidyate yanaya. Anyah pantha ayanaya na vidyate. That means this sentence discards the possibility of another means to that. It says very clearly that there cannot be any other path to this particular realization. There is no other path at all for your sojourn, for your journey. And tarati shokam atmavit. So this is a beautiful sentence. It says tarati shokam atmavit. Atmavit atmanam vetti iti atmavit kvibanta, which means atmanam vetti. That means one who realizes his own self, realizes the reality. Atmavit shokam tarati. That means goes beyond, transcends the shoka, grief, all kinds of grievances, all kinds of sorrow. How? Atmavitvam. Because there is this self-realization. So there are three things mentioned in one sentence. One, realization of Atma. Two, transcending this mortal world which is a cause of grief or sorrow. Three, getting liberation. So three things are mentioned, three are to be connected. How? One thing is that only self-realization leads to liberation. Two, self-realization means discarding the experience of the world also, because it is cause of shoka or sorrow. And three, tarati means going beyond. When a person goes beyond the world experience, naturally it supposes that the world experience is only a temporary one. It is only something to be discarded. So thus this sentence lays emphasis on three aspects of this. One is Atma Jnana. Two, moksha in the form of Atma Swarupa. Three, Jagataha Mithyatva. Because Shokam Tarati, that means leaving this grief here, he will go beyond that. That means this world of sorrow or experience is only Mithya. So this way Advaita points out the important cardinal doctrines of Advaita, this philosophy. And now Jnanagnihi Ityadyaha Tarati Shokam Atmavit Ityadyaha. That means all these scriptural sentences, Jnanat sarva samsara nivrittim darshayantyaha tasya cha mithyatvam suchayanti. Jnanat sarva samsara nivrittim darshayantyaha. So what do these scriptural sentences show? That means Jnanat sarva samsara nivritti. That means the coming out of the world experience with the help of Jnana. Thus Jnanat, that means with the help of Jnana, Sarva Samsara Nivritti, that means the experience of all transmigratory life or world is discarded. So thus Jnana is shown here as a means to this particular kind of denial of this world experience. And Itya Darshayantyaha, what do they emphasize? Tasya cha mithyatvam suchayanti. And at the same time, these scriptural sentences, while showing that a person transcends death, transcends the world experience, indirectly they imply that this particular world experience is only mithya. Mithya is that which appears at a particular point of time, but which cannot be present in the other two divisions of time. That means which is seen or perceived in a particular point of time. In the past and future, it's not there. So this kind of experience is called mithya. And here the entire world experience in one point of time or the other is taken as mithya. Thus the scriptures show. Not only that, this is only an indication. That means this is not direct proposition. But when it comes to the scriptural statements, we find some other statements which directly tell us that the world experience is only mithya. What are they? Ekameva dvitiyam atonyadhartam neha nanasti kinchana athata adesho neti neti ityadyaha shrutayah sakshadeva mithyatvam pratipadayanti. So it's very beautiful here. One, ekameva dvitiyam brahma. So this particular scriptural sentence says Brahma ekam eva advitiyam. So the Brahman is ekam eva advitiyam. That means it is the lone reality. Ekam eva, absolutely one single reality. And not only that, ataha anyat artam. That means other than this is only artha. Artha means something which is denied, discarded, contradicted, condemned. So that kind of atahanyadhartam. So other than this is only artha. So two things are there. Not only this, there are other sentences. Neha nanasti kinchana. So the Upanishad says it very beautifully. Iha, that means in this world. Nana, that means many. Nasti kinchana. Multifarious world or variety or manifoldness or many things. So that is not there in the world. Nana is not there. Iha, kinchana it says. Kinchana means of any kind. That means difference of any kind is not there in the world. This is the Upanishadic philosophy, because it exhorts us to view this particular world as a single unit, as a beautiful one unit called Brahman. So everything is within the Brahman, everything is within this supreme cosmic reality, and therefore there cannot be any kind of difference or division. That's why the later Advaita logicians like Sri Harsha, Shankaracharya, Madhusudan Saraswati, so Nrsimhashma, so all these great scholars of Advaita philosophy, they aimed at their arguments on this particular falsity of the world. That means if the Nyaya Shastra, Vaisheshika Shastra and all the other Advaita philosophies try to enumerate, try to classify this particular world, Advaita says that this kind of classification, this kind of analysis, objective analysis of the universe is utterly of no use. It is baseless, and sometimes they show the logical fallacies also, and they mention very clearly that the division of the world into several categories like substances, qualities, actions, and generic properties, specific properties. So this kind of classification of the universe is entirely impossible. It is exposed to the logical fallacies also. Now we find in Khandana Khandakadya that all the definitions offered by the Nyaya system are shown there as suffering from one or the other defect. Similarly, Chitsukacharya also had shown how the definitions provided by others are faulty. Not only that, in Advaita Siddhi and in the present text also, Madhusudana Saraswati also had shown how the definitions given by the Dvaita are faulty. So, giving these erroneous definitions, those systems of philosophy cannot ascertain that they have successfully analyzed the universe. And now Madhusudana Saraswati presents the opponent's view that Neha nanasti kinchana. That means the Upanishadic sentence mentions here that the world experience is only mithya. That means only a temporary experience, and we have a long journey to cover. So that's why there is not any kind of difference in this world. Athata adeshaha neti netiti. Not only this, the Upanishad mentions again, Atha, now, Ataha, for this purpose, that means since the reality is one, Adeshaha, now the final instruction is na iti, na iti. That means you try to get to the reality by discarding all the other things, just remove them like the peels of onion. So we observe that an onion appears to be an object, but when we try to peel off the layers one by one, and finally we come to the level when there will not be anything left. Similarly, when we try to scan and understand our own reality within, we understand that when we scan one, peeling off ourselves, not the body, not the mind, not the senses, not the intellect, and this way when we simply remove the sheets, remove the covers, we come to that particular point of time when we find ourselves as of having no properties, no qualities and nothing. It is pure. It is pure. And at that particular point of realization, we get the same word, Shivah Kevaloham, Shivah Kevaloham. That means in that particular moment of time when we close our eyes and feel that we remember the sentence, Shivah Kevaloham, I am only that absolute reality, I am only that perfect energy, I am only that supreme Brahman. So this kind of realization is possible there, and for that the Upanishadic philosophy focuses on negating all the appearances, properties, everything, remove. And what is the way of getting onto that? This is only with the help of Vimarsha. This is possible with the help of this kind of discretion. How? Take for example a cloth, take for example any object and try to understand what it is. Cloth is only a name given to a particular form, but when we get closer we understand that they are only threads. What is thread? We understand it is cotton. What is cotton? When we get further close into that, and at the final point we observe that which appeared as cloth, that which appeared as threads, that which appeared as cotton, etc., that's only dissolving itself further, and finally we come to that particular point where it's energy alone is the reality. So this is exactly what the modern scientists also felt, especially in the physics. So when they tried to analyze the matter, first according to the atomic theory, they thought that all the objects are composed of atoms. Now when they tried to divide the atom also, they found one nucleus, electron, proton, neutron, and further they went and they found the electric bond, the electromagnetic fields, and within that particular field the components are moving around and they are bound to each other, and with great speeds they are moving. And further when they went down within the matter, they found that electromagnetic field is also an expression of energy, and further when they went inside, they found that energy is the reality. Then that energy itself manifests itself in different forms. So that itself is is showing as electron, proton, neutron. That itself has become various objects outside, the trees, flowers, creepers, the water, air, everything. So the entire world is made up of this particular energy, and it is the reality. So here that particular reality which tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam, the Upanishad says, so which actually causes everything to shine forth, everything to appear, everything to multiply. So that particular energy is Brahman. And that is everything. That Brahman, that energy is everything, and all the other are only attributed to that, or the various forms of that. We understand in the last century also, when they found that electromagnetic field, gravitational field, nuclear forces, weak and strong, these primary four forces, when they thought that these are different, as they thought that mass and energy were different, but in 1905, when Einstein propounded his special theory of relativity, people realized that not many realities, there should be one reality, and thus they found a coherent system, a harmony among all these theories. That means these four electromagnetic field, gravitational field, weak nuclear, strong nuclear forces, all these are not different. They are differently perceived by the scientists of the one reality. Similarly, mass and energy, in the beginning they thought to be different, till Newton also. But afterwards, after this particular theory of relativity, even mass and energy ratio has differed. They came to be perceived as two sides of one coin. So matter becomes energy, energy manifests as matter. So this is the chain-like connection. In the Kashmiri philosophy also we find that Shiva and Shakti, these two are the great realities. They say Shiva is the locus of Shakti, whereas Shakti is the manifestation of Shiva. So this is a wonderful theory of the Kashmiri Shaivism also. And here we find ataha adeshaha neti neti. So how to get into that reality? The only way is to remove the sheaths, remove the coverings, remove the layers, and after getting ourselves free of all these layers, sheaths, coverings, psychological conditioning, we can get on to that particular reality. I call this as psychological condition, because when I see myself as body, it is a psychological condition. When I see myself as somebody having these emotions, these feelings, these idiosyncrasies, this is psychological condition. That's why Madhusudana Saraswati said earlier that Pramatrutva is only antahkarana but adhyastha. That means the property is not there in the consciousness, Pramatrutva, but the consciousness is superimposed on this intellect or mind, and that mind becomes the knower. And when we separate all these, when we minutely understand, after shackling off all these psychological conditions, and we come to that particular reality that we are the supreme consciousness. And everybody, in every body, in every being, this consciousness is present, and understanding that in its true form is the essence of Upanishadic philosophy. Iti adyaha shrutayaha. There are many other scriptural sentences which sakshadeva mithyatvam pratipadayanti. That means there are some scriptural sentences which just indicate that the world experience is mithya. But there are other scriptural sentences also, profusely quoted by Shankara Bhagavad in his Shvetashvatar Upanishad Bhashya. They directly say that the world experience is mithya. So sakshadeva mithyatvam pratipadayanti. That means they propound the falsity of this entire world experience directly, very directly. That means we should not say that the scriptures always indicate something and we only interpret that. Sometimes there are very clear scriptural sentences which directly tell us that the world experience is mithya, false. And that is taking for this Tarati Shokam Atmavit etc. These sentences have beautifully been expounded by Dharmaraja Dhurindra in his Vedanta Paribhasha, the last section, and Advaita Siddhi, the last chapter, he has discussed the clear meaning of these scriptural sentences. Neha nanasti kinchana ekameva advitiyam brahma. Because in Panchadashi Vidyaranya Swami tells us ekam eva advitiyam. 3 words are there. If ekam means one, eva means only, advitiyam means without a second. All these means ultimately the same. So why don't you say just ekam or advitiyam? Why do you combine all the 3 and say ekam eva advitiyam? So if ekam can give the meaning, what is the use of eva? If both can give the meaning, what is the use of advaitam, advitiyam? So thus all the 3 words are unnecessary, thus some may feel. But Vidyaranya Swami also explained, following the Advaita tradition, that the ekam, eva, advitiyam, these 3 words really tell us that the Brahman is devoid of sajatiya, vijatiya, swagata bheda. That means the Brahman has no sajatiya bheda. That means no kind of difference. 1, of homogeneous nature. 2, vijatiya. That means no kind of difference of heterogeneous nature. Third, Swagata, that means the Brahman has no difference within itself. So thus, a similar type of difference is discarded, different type of difference is also discarded, and difference within its parts is also discarded, and that pure consciousness is Brahman. That's what the Ekameva Dvitiyam explains. Thus, if we can understand the true purport of these Advaita scriptural sentences, then we can really experience the establishment of this particular consciousness, and we can get into the experience of that consciousness. So the opponent offers this particular argument, and not only that, he says, okay, on the basis of scriptures also the world experience is known as false. Not only that, there is logic how Drishyatvena Shukti Rajatadivan Mithyatva Anumanacha. So the particle cha shows, and on account of this particular logic, the world experience is taken as false. What is this Anumana? Anumana means inference. Anumana means deducting something from some other thing. So this Anumana means logical inference. Shukti Rajatadivat, this is the example given. And now when we construe that particular proposition, we understand Vimatam Mithya, or we can say Brahma Anyat Mithya, Drushyatvat, Shukti Rajatadivat. A beautiful proposition. The proposition begins with this Brahma Anyat Mithya. So first Pratijna Vakya. What is that? Brahma Anyat Mithya. That means other than Brahma is Mithya, unreal. Why? The reason is given Drushyatvat, because it appears, because it is a matter of perception, it is perceived. Whatever is perceived is Mithya. So that is the Vyapti here. How? Shukti Rajatadivat. Shukti Rajatadivat, that means just like the experience of silver on conch shell, that means misapprehension of this conch shell as silver, and other like snake rope, all that. So here this kind of illusion is Mithya. Similarly, the world experience is also Mithya. Whatever appears is Mithya. Now, some people may argue that Shukti Rajata is also part of that Brahma Anyat. So it includes there. Now, if it includes, then there is the problem of Siddha Sadhana. Siddha Sadhana is logical fallacy. That means whatever is already proved, you are again taking that as an example and try to prove the same thing. So it will become Siddha Sadhana. Now he says the Pakshatavachedaka. That means the exact property of Paksha is taken here, and Pakshatavachedaka avachedena sadhya siddhehe uddeshatvat. So Advaita explains that we want to establish that particular sadhya. Pakshatavachedaka avachedena sadhya siddhi. That means not the single sadhya, but with that particular property with which that particular Paksha is mentioned. So here Paksha is Brahma Anyat, Brahma Anyatva. So that is the Pakshatavachedaka. And Brahma Anyat, that is Mithya, like Shukti Rajata. So that is the general way of establishing something, and Shukti Rajata is taken as the particular example here. And Drushyatva is the reason taken here. That means whatever is perceived is only false. That means in the modern world also we find that all appearances are deceptive. They are unreal. Not only that, in Advaita Siddhi we come across other reasons also. He says Vimatam Mithya. 1. Drushyatvat. 2. Parichinnatvat. Drushyatvat, Parichinnatvat. So these are the reasons given there. And now Drushyatva Hetu, that means being perceivable. So this is the problem here. And because of this particular thing, the world appearance is only false, Mithya. Whatever is Drushya is mithya. So this is the Advaita contention. Shruti Drushyattvena Shukti Rajatadivat Mithyatva Anumanacha. So in this way we can understand the Mithyatva Anumana. That means with the help of logic or inference also we can establish the world experience as mithya, unreal. So this is the thing there. And now what is this Drushyatva? Drushyatva has been variously explained by the commentators. Some say Drushyatva means Sakshi Bhasyatva, just Sakshi Bhasyatva. That means that which is known, comprehended by the Sakshi Chaitanya. So this is one definition of Drushyatva. Of course, there are other also, like Drushyatva, Vritti Bhasyatva, Sakshi Bhasyatva. These are all given there. So he says Drushyatvam Sakshi Bhasyatvam. That means whatever appears to the Sakshi is mithya. What is then mithya? That mithya word has been variously explained. We find some 5 definitions of mithyatva in Advaita Siddhi also, taken from the previous texts of Advaita. We find it can be Sadasadbhyam Anirvachaniyam or Sadasad Vilakshanam or Swashrayatvena Abhimata Yavanishta Atyanta Bhava Pratiyogitva. So these are all the definitions of mithyatva. And in another way, it is simply Jnana Nivartyatva. All definitions are discussed in the Advaita texts. What is mithya? We can say that which cannot be ascertained as either real or unreal is mithya. Well, or we can say that is mithya which is discarded by true knowledge later on. That is also mithya, we can say. 3, that which is different from sat or asat is also mithya. Or we can say mithya is that which is not present where it is perceived. This is very important and beautiful definition of mithya. That means when we perceive snake in a row, actually the snake is not there. So it is swashrayatvena abhimata yavanishta atyanta bhava pratiyogi. That means that snake is the counterpositive of its absence in that particular object which is thought to be its locus. Not only that, even if we take the general experience of cloth, all that, we understand that the cloth is seen somewhere. This is cloth, but actually they are threads. That's why the threads which are taken as the locus of cloth have its negation only, have its absence only. Thus, cloth is mithya because it is not present in that locus, that is threads, in which it is supposed to be present. So thus everywhere, wherever somebody is perceived at a particular place where it is supposed to be present but not there, so it is actually mithya. Swa ashraya nishtha atyanta bhava pratiyogi. So this also can be the definition of the mithyatva. And thus mithyatva has been explained that the world experience is mithya. That means it appears, therefore it is mithya. It has destruction, therefore it is mithya. It has limitation, therefore it is mithya. So any reason you can take and establish the mithyatva of the world. And second thing, when the scripture clearly says that the reality is only the consciousness, so how can you attribute reality to the world? In that case, you will be going against the scriptures. The dualists may argue that if you discard the world as false, then you are going against your experience. So when you are looking around everything present, how can you say that this is false and something which is not a matter of experience is real? Because to the dualists, especially the logicians and Sankhya Yoga, etc., they don't see any Brahman. So they say Brahman is your creation, your fancy. And you say that whatever is not seen, whatever cannot be understood, whatever is not matter of our cognition, that can be real. And the world, which is a matter of experience, which is a matter of convention, this is unreal. So there is anomaly between these two. Thus the dualists may argue, especially on the basis that the world is a matter of direct perception. What kind of perception? San ghataha, sat pustakam. So everywhere we find astitva is connected to that particular object. And to this our Advaita philosophers answer that actually the astitva part of object is the part of Brahman. Astibhati priyam. Astibhati priyam cheti nama rupam cha iti amshapanchakam. So actually the entire world is in these five. Astibhati priyam, these three mean Satchit Ananda, these three, and Nama Rupa. Five are there, of course. We cannot separate all these. But the thing is, Nama Rupa, that means name and form, they constitute the world experience. And all the other three, that means Asti Bhati Priyam, these are actually the nature of Brahman. Thus, within this universe, we try to understand that the first three, Asti Bhati Priyam, nature of the Brahman, Nama Rupa, the part of this world, and Advaita says that last two are mithya, therefore to be discarded. Nama Rupa, Nama Rupe Pruthakritya, that's what he says. That means if you try to discern the name and form of everything, you understand that the ultimate reality called Brahman is bubbling, shining forth in all these. So it is the kingdom of Brahman. It is the expansion called Brahman. And therefore, all this limited experience is only mithya, something to be discarded. Because the Brahman is Swaprakasha and Advitiya. That's why you don't require any other thing for its realization. Now, coming to the argument of the Dvaitins, that the Brahman is not something to be realized, it is devoid of all properties, qualities, etc. So why to bother about that? Why don't you live in this particular world, etc.? We understand that in such matters, when something is beyond our direct perception, inference and our logic, all that, the scriptures come for our rescue. That means the Veda, the scripture, the experience of yogins, the great experience of liberated souls, that is the pramana here, that is the proof here that there is something called Brahman. That's why the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also says, Ihaiva chet avedit, Iha santam enam avedit. That means one should realize that as the lone reality during his life. Kenopanishad also says, Iha chet avedit, adha satyam asti. That means if a person realizes the Brahman as reality, then he will be saved. Otherwise, mahati vinashtihi. So he will get the final calamity on him. So this is the thing there. That means Brahman reality is the matter of scriptures. And when all the worldly pramana fail, the scriptures come for a rescue, and on the basis of these scriptures we understand that the Brahman is sole reality and world experience is temporary experience. It is only a convention and it lasts till we realize the Brahman. Once we realize that, there will not be any duality at all. That's why in the beginning of Vedanta Paribhasha, Dharmaraja Dvarindra explains that Brahma Sakshatkara Anantaram hi Jagato Badhaha. That means the world experience is discarded, totally denied, only after the realization of Brahma. These are simultaneous, of course. That means once a person realizes Brahman, that moment itself, this world experience leaves him. And that's why whatever is negated, like the dream experience, it is unreal, but it has temporary reality. That's why we say that it has empirical existence, not absolute ultimate existence. And the absolute reality is the Brahman only. So thus, in this particular paragraph, the opponent shows clearly that if you explain the nature of Adhyasa, we can definitely get convinced. But Adhyasa itself is difficult to be established. Atmadhyasaha taiv anatmani siddhe tatra atmadhyasaha anatmadhyasena cha atmano doshasadrushyadi sambhavat tatra cha anatmadhyasaha iti atmashrayadi dosha prasangacha etena atmanatma adhyasasya avidyatmakatvat न विकल्पावसरः इति अपास्तं स्वप्रकाशात्मनि अविद्यायाः अपि अनुपपत्तेः. Now he says Atma adhyastataya eva anatmani siddhe. That means Atmani adhyastataya. That means this non-self world experience is something projected on the consciousness. That is called Atma. And thus, because of this only it is called Anatma. That means whatever depends for its experience on this consciousness, it is mithya. That means the entire world is a matter of experience, of course, it is drushya. But for such kind of experience, it depends on this consciousness, Atma. And for this reason only, it is called mithya. Tatra atmadhyasaha anatma adhyasena cha atmanaha dosha sadrishyadi sambhavat. If we say that anatma adhyasena cha atmanaha, that means if we think that this self is superimposed on the non-self, then there will be many fallacies. And we observe here that this particular kind of mithyatva is the very strong fort of the Advaita philosophy. Some other people may say that it is actually the weakest point of Advaita, but Advaitins don't bother about that. Sri Harsha, especially in his Khandakadya, tries to bring our attention to this particular point, that he says we are firmly established in that experience called Brahman. Actually, we are very happy, we are blissful, and we don't bother about other duality at all. But there is one problem, that when you try to confuse the people, when you try to misguide the people, when you try to show your logic, we want to demonstrate that your logic is defeated by your logic only. And we, all the Advaitins, are content, are happy, because we are established in this one secondless Brahman, which is Ananda, absolute bliss. So we stop here, and in the next class we will go ahead with this mithyatva or falsity of the word. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.